What's up, guys? I guess we're live right now. I tried this a couple other times. I hope the audio comes through. Um, yeah, sorry, I needed to pull up the chat window. Welcome everyone to the Phoenix Report. I'm Jack Connor, and I've wanted to talk for a while. I saw it this past weekend. We got the debut of That '90s Show on Netflix, which is a sequel to one of my all-time favorite sitcoms, That '70s Show. I loved That '70s Show. I remember seeing the pilot when it first came out in 1998. The show ran until 2006, 8 seasons. I loved that show. I thought it was so funny. I loved the ensemble characters. I thought the chemistry was great, and I was really excited when I found out that they were doing a sequel series to this to see to revisit these characters and to see what they were up to after the '70s. I was glad I was glad when it was announced. I liked the previews, and I saw season one this past weekend. I binged it in a day, and I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. There's still some, as far as like the new characters, some of it still takes a little bit to get warmed up to. Obviously, those are huge shoes to fill, and that's a tough thing to do, especially taking on an existing beloved show and adding new characters to them and expecting people to to embrace them right away. I wanted to give them a chance, and I don't think all the characters quite landed the way that they thought they would, but I think it's still only one season, and they had a lot of ground to cover in 10 episodes. So I thought it did what it was supposed to do, and I'm excited to see more. I don't know what the plans are, if they are being picked up for future seasons just yet. I imagine they will be, though. I imagine a lot of people have been tuning in since the show came out, and from what I understand, the reviews have mostly been pretty positive. You'll so I'm sure you'll get people who don't want anything to do with the new cast and all that stuff, and maybe it won't possibly replace what the original show was, and I understand that, but from what I understand, people seem to like it so far. In order to give it a context, I wanted to sort of talk about the original show, that '70s show, and where we sort of left off with these characters. I remember in the series finale, it was December 31st, 1979, just as they were about to roll into 1980. And I remember in the last season of the show, Topher Grace and Ashton Kutcher had left the show. Um, in season 8, they had wrote Eric out of the show, saying that he was studying to be a teacher, and he got some sort of student teaching, sort of study abroad thing in Africa, which that explained why he was gone for most of season 8, I should say. In the final season, he did come back, and he and Donna had broken up. So I don't know exactly how long he was supposed to have been gone for. It was supposed to be for a few months, but they ended up reconciling and getting back together at the end of the series. And Kelso, so Ashton Kutcher, he had been written out of the show. He had made a few appearances in season 8, but they had explained that he had moved to Chicago. He had gotten a job as a security guard at the Playboy Club, which is perfect, perfect for Kelso. And he also wanted to be close to his daughter Betsy, who he had with Brooke, who was played by Shannon Elizabeth. So that explained where he was, and and also at the end of the original show, Hyde, played by Danny Masterson, he had gotten ownership of a record store that previously belonged to his father, and Fez and Jackie had ended up getting together at the end of the show. They were like just started a new relationship, which a lot of people didn't care for that pairing. Which I agreed. Jackie and Hyde had dated before, and the way they kind of broke up, I felt was a little anticlimactic, a little strange how it managed to happen, and yet they stayed friends. Which that happens a lot in these shows. But yeah, she and Fez ended up getting together towards the end. And so that's sort of where we left off with these characters. I know Bob, Donna's dad, had moved to Florida, and originally Red and Kitty were going to move to Florida, but at the last minute they decided to stay in Point Place, Wisconsin, which is where the show takes place. So that was where we had left those characters, and this show, that '90s show, picks up 15 years later in the summer of 1995. It mainly focuses on Leia Foreman, who's Eric and Donna's daughter, which of course she's named after Princess Leia from Star Wars. And yeah, we sort of explained that Eric is now an adjunct professor in Chicago, teaching a course on the religion of Star Wars, which is it's just perfect. And Donna is a published author, and Fez. Fez was one of the funniest parts of that '90s show. Seeing Wilmer Valderrama come back. I know he's done a lot since the original show, but he's just one of those guys. All you need to do is look at him, and you start laughing. And the stuff he comes out with is hysterically funny. So it was great to see that Fez, who was a shampoo boy at a salon towards the end of the original series, now owns his own salon and has become like a in-demand stylist, and of course is a total womanizer, playboy, constantly dates several women, which is perfect. Obviously, they don't mention what happened to Stephen Hyde, because of what's going on with Danny Masterson in real life. Now, Danny Masterson, I don't want to comment because it's an ongoing legal situation, but he has been charged with several counts of forcible rape and a few other things that, assault allegations. Some of it's related to, he's a member of the Church of Scientology, so I don't know how much that factors into it. I don't know if that has anything to do with the current allegations he's facing, but he's awaiting a trial in March of 2023. So that's an ongoing legal situation. Danny Masterson was previously on a Netflix show with Ashton Kutcher called The Ranch a couple years back. And in 2018, he got fired from that show because of all the legal issues that he's undergoing right now. And you know what? I don't know if he's guilty of it or not. I can't say that for sure. I mean, I believe innocent until proven guilty, but those are some pretty serious accusations. It sounds like multiple people have come forward with this about him. So, if he's guilty, then he absolutely, should face the consequences and not come back to work. But, if he's found not guilty, I was a fan of him on the original show. It would be cool to see him, reprise the role of Hyde. But, again, that's like a real life terrible situation. So I guess for obvious reasons, they don't really address what became of Stephen Hyde in by the time of 1995. So will they ever? I mean, I'm sure they'll have to at some point if they make more seasons of this, but we'll see. We'll see. It was great to see Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis back as Kelso and Jackie. Apparently, in real life, they ended up getting married. Ashton and Mila did, which is a pretty wild story. It's like life imitating art. They met on the show, obviously, but they were involved with different people. Mila was in a long-term relationship with Macaulay Culkin, and Ashton he was famously married to Demi Moore for a couple of years. They even had Bruce Willis on season 8 of that '70s show. I mean, so that was widely known, but yeah, a couple of years ago, Ashton and Mila got together, and they're married now. They have a couple of kids, so it kind of made sense for their characters to eventually get back together. So we learned that Kelso and Jackie are married, and they have a son, Jay, who's the same age as Leia Foreman, and Jay is a central character on the show. He's part of the new gang, and he's Leia's love interest. And so I mean, the kid who they got to play Jay Kelso, Mace Coronel, I believe his name was. Like spot on casting. You totally buy that this is Ashton Kutcher's kid. So They did really well with that. I want to go down the main cast for a second. Callie Haverda, I don't is the actress who plays Leia. I don't really know any of the young actors. I can't really find any other credits that they've had. I'm sure they've done other stuff. I didn't know if they were Disney Channel kids or what the deal was. But they did pretty well. We had Gwen Runk, who's Leia's new best friend. She sort of hit Leia's hide. She's sort of an edgier character. She's a riot girl, is what they call her, and so she's definitely plays like the Stephen Hyde role in the show, and her half brother Nate is he's sort of the dumb jock. He kind of plays up that stereotype. Doesn't seem like a particularly smart guy, but that was my only issue with some of the new kids. It's like you had Nate, who was sort of a goofball, and you also had Jay, Kelso, who wasn't really portrayed as being as dumb as Michael Kelso, but had some similar tendencies. That was one of my big criticisms of it, was the fact that Jay and Nate seemed so similar. It's like, I didn't really figure out what is Nate's thing. Like, he likes football, that's pretty obvious, and he's kind of an idiot. But like, you can't. I don't know. I feel like it's redundant if you have two characters who are that similar. You know what I mean? Like, they need to. I feel like they needed to make some distinctions between Jay and Nate a little bit. Maybe they will in season 2, and I don't know. I could have said the same thing about Nate's girlfriend, Nikki, played by Sam Morelos, I believe. Nikki. We didn't really find out what Nikki's thing was until, like, I'm gonna say the second to last episode of the show. Turns out she's very ambitious and intelligent and very studious, very brainy, which is interesting. We haven't really had too many characters like that in the original cast, which I appreciate it. They didn't try to make everyone like a carbon copy of the original cast, which I appreciated. You got to give these new kids their own their own character arcs, or their own characteristics that people grab onto. Or should be able to identify right away. And I didn't really know what Nikki's thing was until later in the show, when we find out, oh, okay, she's very studious, she's very into school, like type A personality. So that's sort of the contrast between her and Nate. So then we had Ozzy, played by Rain Doy, who's he's very sassy, and he's openly gay, and I felt like he was funny. I didn't think he was necessarily as funny and as crazy as Fez. Now, granted, again, it's still the first season. They're still figuring out what these characters are. So sometimes these things take time. But Ozzy, they were trying to make him a little more outlandish, and I feel like they should embrace that a little bit, and to really, but not make him just a gay stereotype. I don't think like being like having those characteristics. That's not enough for a personality trait. But having his dry sense of humor, I thought was great. And having him, be very dramatic and very just over the top, I feel like they should lean into that more. So that was, those were, the new cast of kids. Obviously, seeing Red and Kitty, Kurtwood Smith and Deborah Jo Rupp back as Red and Kitty Foreman is excellent. Like, it was so great to see them. I mean, Red Foreman is one of the funniest TV dads of all time. Like, he's great. He's so hilarious. And it was so great to see the two of them back, reprising those roles. We did see Topher Grace only showed up in the first episode, in the pilot. It's weird. Eric kind of still had the same sort of 70s hair in 1995, but it's a college professor. I buy that. Laura Prepon was back as Donna. She looks great. She definitely fit right into it. Everyone looks great. They've all aged very well. We had Tommy Chong back as Leo, because why not? Like, why not have Leo? Of course, he hasn't changed a bit. It was great seeing, like I said, Mila and Ashton showed up as Kelso and Jackie in the first episode. I wish we would have seen more of them, but they're both very busy, so maybe they didn't they couldn't commit to more appearances on the show. But it would have been great to it would have been great to see more of them. We had Don Stark come back as Bob Pinciotti, which was great because they explained that Bob lives in Florida, but he flew up for Leia's birthday. It's definitely a fun dynamic seeing Bob and Red and Kitty now sharing a grandchild. So it was really that was a lot of fun seeing Bob back into it. We even saw Jim Rash come back as Fenton, who's Fez's archenemy. Like that was perfect. Fez, I think, was the funniest part of the whole show. Honestly, Fez is hysterical. Like I said, seeing Wilmer Valderrama just step right back into that role, and just like all you need to do is just look at him and you start laughing. Like he's that hilarious. So, I'd love to see more of Fez if they continue the show. Apparently, and we also had a new character with Sherry Runk, who's Nate and Gwen's mom, who they move in next door to Bob and Midge's old house that next to Red and Kitty's, and she fits in perfectly. I don't know, Andrea Anders is the actress who plays Sherry. She's been in a bunch of TV roles. She fit in perfectly. I thought she was really funny. Has that Wisconsin accent, and she was perfect as like the annoying nosy neighbor. But she like had her own thing. Like she fit in perfectly to the show. I didn't feel like I didn't really find her annoying at all. And she strikes up a relationship with Fez. So that could be kind of funny if they explore that, in later seasons, seeing Fez be sort of a stepdad to these two teenagers, seeing what that would be like. That would be kind of funny. There are a couple of continuity issues that I sort of had with the show. For one thing, with both Jay and Leia, they're turning 15 in 1995. And with the way we left that 70s show at the end of it, apparently, because like at the end of the original series, Fez and Jackie had gotten together, and we had learned in this show that Jackie had left Fez for Kelso while they were on vacation in Jamaica. Which is pretty lame. I mean, a lot of people didn't like the Fez and Jackie pairing. A lot of people didn't like that as much. I didn't mind it. I thought it made sense to me. I would have liked to see them explore that a little bit more. That was sort of something they had teased from the very beginning, that Fez was in love with Jackie, and it was cool to see them finally get together. But that didn't happen, and they sort of explained that that's why Kelso and Jackie got back together. And as we learned, they had been married once before, divorced, and now they're getting married again in 1995. So, that's perfect for Kelso and Jackie. So, getting back to the kids, like timeline-wise, Eric and Donna would have had to get pregnant with Leia pretty quickly. Like I'm thinking, like within at least January of 1980, like as soon as they got back together, which makes sense. Like I'm just saying in terms of making a timeline line up, because she turns 15 in 1995. So. I mean, doing the math, I don't know if she was born prematurely or, because Eric was gone in Africa for a little bit, for a few months there towards the end of 1979. So, and then I guess Kelso and Jackie would have had to, get pregnant very soon after that as well. So, by the way, we don't have any mention of Kelso's daughter, Betsy, who probably would be at least 16 or 17 by 1995. Maybe she lives with her mom in Chicago. We don't really know what Kelso and Jackie do for work, what they do for a living, and that's, there's a lot of gaps in between the 15-year period. I would have loved to learn more about what these characters were up to during the 80s and the early 90s, before we get to where we were. But, which that leads to a few other questions. Like, I'm surprised Leia and Jay hadn't crossed paths as young children before, because as close as Eric and Donna were to Kelso and Jackie, you would think they would at least keep in touch with each other over these major life events, like getting married or having kids. And you would think, especially if Kelso and Jackie and their family live in Point Place, you would think, Red and Kitty would be aware of who Jay is. They didn't seem to know that he was Kelso's kid. So I mean, that's one of those things you would think they would be aware of that, or at least have some knowledge of who he was. Or it's also possible that I mean, Leia probably didn't grow up in Point Place. She visits, but you would think if Kelso and Jackie and Eric and Donna were friends, you would think that maybe their kids would have met each other at some point. But it seems like they're meeting for the first time here. But I like the pairing of Jay and Leia. I feel like they tried to throw in a little love triangle thing at the end of the show, which I thought it added a little more drama than there needed to be. So there was like a hint where like Nate and Leia almost kissed, and Nate is still with Nikki, and but Leia and Jay still like each other, so that's sort of a messy situation they get into. Look, it's par for the course with these kind of shows, but like I have a feeling like I know who's going to end up with who by the time everything's said and done. So that's kind of how I feel about it. They had a lot of the same production, same recurring gags that 70s show did. A lot of it was updated for like 90s pop culture references. A lot of fantasy sequences. I loved the 90210 spoof, and they brought Brian Austin Green back to as himself and to play his character David. Like, that was perfect, because they did that in that 70s show all the time, where they would bring like 70s pop culture figures and they would cameo on the show. I would love to see more of that as the show goes on. I don't know if future seasons are going to be like take place during the summer, because they mentioned that Leia lives in Chicago with their parents. If they're able to get Topher Grace and Laura Prepon to come back like for a full like run, it to be like recurring or main or semi-recurring cast members, they could have a situation where Eric and Donna move back to Point Place, and that could result in Leia going to school with her new friends, unless they want to keep it during the summers, which 96, 97, 98, 99. If they want to get 4 more seasons out of this thing, they could. Maybe that's the plan. I don't know. The original show was 8 seasons, and it took place over 4 years. So who knows what they want to do with it? But I liked the show a lot. I want to see more of it. There are definitely a lot of questions I have, whether or not they're going to address what happened to Hyde, or get some closure to that. I don't know. That's a real life situation. That's still a delicate issue. They also don't mention what happened to Laurie, Eric's sister. That's probably because the original actress who played Laurie, Lisa Robin Kelly, she had some real life substance issues, and she passed away in 2013. So maybe they don't want to address that out of respect to Lisa Robin Kelly. I know she was recasted on the show at one point. The role was taken over by an actress named Christina Moore in season 6. So I don't know if they're going to address Laurie, and I'm kind of surprised that Eric and Donna only had one kid. Maybe Jackie and Kelso have more than one child together. We don't know. They're kind of hinting that because Nate and Gwen, they say that they have same mom, different dads. People have been kind of suggesting that Hyde might be Gwen's dad. I feel like that would be a bit much. I don't know if I see that, and but who knows? Like, they could go down that route if they want to. So I mean, that's I mean, and again, I meant Betsy, who's Michael Kelso's oldest daughter with Brooke. She doesn't show up. It could be fun to see her all grown up, and what her relationship with Jay is. It could be fun to see Luke Wilson come back as Casey Kelso, who dated Donna, and at the end of that 70s show, he was a gym teacher at the high school. Maybe he's one of their teachers. Maybe Randy, Randy Pearson, who was added in season 8. played by Josh Myers. A lot of people didn't like that character. I thought he was fine, but maybe he could show up and make an appearance. Who knows? Maybe it would be fun to see some of the original teenagers from the original show as to show up as either like parents or teachers or people in town like Crazy Catherine or Big Rhonda or any number of funny side characters that they've had have come back. I would love to see them sort of expand that universe a little bit. But yeah, I loved that '70s show. I like that '90s show a lot. I would love to see more. I feel like it could be they could do a lot of really fun stuff with it. So I'm on board for it. I hope you guys liked it. Make sure you check out my links in the description, and make sure you hit like and subscribe, and hit the notification bell for new videos that I put out all the time. And if you're listening to this on my podcast, make sure you subscribe to that as well. I'll have an audio version of this on my podcast feed as well. All my links are in the description. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. This has been the Phoenix Report. I'm Jack Connor.